Right, situation report. It's just past 9 o'clock. I found a spot to set up my tent. It is just off the track for tonight, but I've been here 10 minutes and nobody has come past. Very quiet, no roads, not even a boat going past. I've covered 110 kilometres today. The last 15 or so after dinner were easy on the legs but not too good on the eyes, as I was going directly into the setting sun. But I've still got enough light to make camp, and I don't have to make dinner. Fortunately, I have awarded myself a wee local treat to have once I've put all my gear inside my tent. And there it is, all packed away. So this is the treat I've got for myself tonight. It's called Pommeau de Bretagne. It's a aperitif, 17%. And it's made of apples, whereas the rest of France lives off their grapes. In Brittany and Normandy, it's the apple that is king, and you can't have a decent apple without making cider out of it, or pommeau, or the local apple brandy in eau de vie. So this is my treat tonight. I'm not going to get through all of it, obviously, but I've ridden far enough to be able to give it a good shot. So as I sit on this park bench that happens to be not entirely encrusted with pigeon shit, can't even hear many pigeons. Lots of other birds, but maybe they've frightened them off. I haven't even got my colour up straight. Electric cyclists. What is it with them? They ride along with a look that's both smug and lazy on their faces, pretending they are doing the world a favour. Clearly they get no satisfaction from it, because they are the least hospitable breed of cyclists you can find. They never say hello. If you stop because you're broken down or dying, they will provide no assistance at all. They've got no sense of community. And I don't know why they feel so happy about themselves, or at least they're trying to project it. And I'm in the old town of Josselin, in front of a 13th century church that was built on the grounds of a 12th century church that was destroyed by Henry Plantagenet. It's a very charming town, and there's even younger people having some late evening drinks. The only downside to this place being in the middle of Bretagne and so close to the canal is that as soon as you get outside of the canal, you're into a hill and you have to start climbing. And when you're on a bicycle, unless it's electric, you don't like climbing. Monday morning, 12 degrees, very heavy rain overnight. I covered 80 kilometres yesterday and managed to pack up this morning without getting too soaked in a charming little village. It's very empty. There's a road over there and some picnic tables in this little rest area where I popped my tent. I've got 47 kilometres to cover today. Hopefully the rain subsides. At the moment I'm just under the eaves of this very handy building, praying for rain to stop. I'm all geared up, protected against the H2O, but I'm thinking this morning's going to be quite challenging. The nearest boulangerie, 500 metres away, is closed until Tuesday, so it's going to be a wee while before I can find breakfast somewhere, and I'm going to have really earned my coffee. I am still damp. I spent an hour and a half in a cafe this morning, eating a couple of croissants and drinking coffee and orangina very slowly. I'm on the edge of the Rance, the river that goes past Saint-Malo Bay. I've got about 30 kilometres to cover. I'm a bit confused about the journey because the one map says I have to climb about 100 metres, and I hope it's not that town up there, because I don't see why it can't just follow the river. And if there are rocks in the way, they need to get their dynamite out and start blowing a track alongside. I think I'm becoming an expert on cycleway construction. Ever since French President Emmanuel Macron appointed a woman as Prime Minister of France just about a week ago, it has set off a population crisis here in France. There's been an exodus of males who just seem to have disappeared, because everybody has been asking me for the last few days, have you seen any men here? I don't know why, but in the next couple of days, my last couple of days in Brittany, I'm going to find out. Just behind me is the ancient walled city of Saint-Malo. It's existed for more than 2,000 years. It was a Gaulish city that was held by the Romans for a time, until the fall of the Roman Empire, and then the Bretons won it back. For a couple of hundred years it was the place where the Corsair, the local pirates, used to charge a tribute to British ships passing through the English Channel onto England, until the English got fed up and wiped them all out in the middle of the 18th century. It was the scene of a major battle a couple of months after D-Day in 1944. The Germans tried to defend their position there, but the Allies got the better of them, ended up burning down the city and having to rebuild it. Took a good 10 years to do so. I have to say though that getting to Saint-Malo was a real challenge a couple of days ago. I had to cross a very perilous bridge that Google told me was fine for cyclists, but in practice it wasn't. I was also very wet and consequently very angry, which I tried all sorts of things to get my bike stolen, but sadly fate was not with me, and I'm still on the trail. I'm dry today. I'm not sure if it's going to rain, but the wet did damage my charging facility, so I have to find out a new way to charge my phone. But I've got to make some distance today, and I've still got to work out if there are any men here. Here in front of this 13th century cathedral in Dol de Bretagne, one of my last stops in Brittany before I reach Normandy. Bit of construction work going on. It was here in Dol de Bretagne in the 9th century that Normandy, a local sovereign, united the Breton people and was finally recognized by the French king as the personal king of Brittany, and Brittany remained independent from France for several hundred years. Other person of note from here, people of note rather, the Stuarts of Scotland came from Brittany, although Robert the Bruce's grandson was the first Stuart king of Scotland. They originated from here in Brittany. All Celts, but with a distinct French leaning. Since I've arrived in Brittany, I've been trying to solve the mystery of the disappearing males from France. Because everywhere I go, people have been saying to me, "Have you seen the men here?" And just as I'm about to cross into the border between Brittany and France, I finally worked out what they're talking about. Here behind me is the largest menhir in France. They weren't talking about disappearing men at all. It's over 9 meters high from the Neolithic period, from the ancient linear pottery culture that existed here from 5000 BC. And they erected these great stones everywhere around Brittany. And they're not quite sure why they did it. I guess because they can. They did it a good 2,500 years before the pyramids, which makes the standing menhir the oldest architectural monuments still standing in human history. So that's the menhir. I found where all the men are. They weren't missing at all. Well, tonight's meal comes in 2 courses, and as I'm in Mont Saint-Michel in the far north western part of France, I'm paying tribute to a dish from the east. This is from the Alsace region, which is far eastern France, which has been German at various points in its history. In fact, it's changed in the last 350 years. It's changed between France and Germany and German states 5 times, heavily contested, obviously because of the food. And tonight I'm having some choucroute, which is a French variation of hot sauerkraut, and they've added pork and a few other interesting things. So for my friends who are worried about whether I'm getting enough vitamins, I can assure you all the vitamins I need are in the cabbage. Second dish for the night also comes from the Far East, just south of the Alsace-Lorraine region, a place called Normandy in the Franche-Comté region. And this is lentils with sausages, Montbéliard sausages, very distinct and prized sausages, and it is clearly a very well regarded high value meal because it comes in a rectangular can, which explains why it's about 3 times the normal price. Well, after 2,500 kilometres on the road, I've just had my first reminder of why cycling is so terrible. Well, not my first reminder, I get those reminders every day, but this was an unhappy one. I pulled up on a curb as I was going through a village thinking I'd found a place to stop for a coffee, and the bicycle gave way. Gravity is not my friend, it seems. Seemed like everyone in the village was watching as I took a tumble, but none of them laughed. So I sort of sat on the ground for a wee while, assessing whether anything was broken. Clearly not. Fair bit of grazing down my side, which I won't show you because that would require stripping off my lycra, which strangely didn't rip in the incident. Nothing broken on the bike, I don't think. But it mainly made me angry, and it gave me an insight into why cyclists are so angry, because not only is gravity fighting against you, so is every other law of physics and every other driver on the road. And for the first time ever, there was a car behind me a little bit later, and I didn't care that I was slowing it down. All I cared about was that I was not giving myself any opportunity to fall again. So I just hogged the middle of the road and was quite prepared to give them a very Anglo-Saxon signal if they expressed impatience. So I'm not sure how far I'm going to ride today, but we'll see how long before I get totally fed up. Well, I've been feeling a little bit stupid most of today, slightly sore. Haven't made a lot of progress. I've done about 40 kilometres, but I think I found a campsite. I'm going to treat myself to a campsite tonight, and hopefully I'll be able to find some food nearby. I didn't do much planning in advance and didn't realise that it was a bank holiday here in France, or at least this part of France, which explained why Mont Saint-Michel was utterly teeming with people yesterday and last night. But some things have worked out well. I managed to find a shop where I could get some extra power banks because for some reason my electrical system is a little bit buggered. But I managed to get 2 power banks, including an induction one that I can use in an emergency. So I just need to find a campsite tonight where I can recharge my batteries both physically and literally. As you can see, I'm just getting dinner underway. Today is a little bit unique because I actually have 2 ingredients going on. That's how we make a meal. And this is how we're making the gratin dauphinois. It's, I think it's ready. I hope it's ready. I hope I've cooked it enough. Because frankly, if I haven't, I'm shit out of luck because the gas bottle has just gone empty. Which is not a bad thing. It means I don't need to carry it tomorrow. And if it happens to be cold, I have a local Normandy, Pommel de Normandy, a mix of apple juice and apple eau de vie from the region. 17%, so don't want to overdo it, but it will help make up for a rather terrible day of cycling.